With all the One Piece hype going on right now, it only made sense that I took Eiichiro Oda's art style and mastered it. I did this in the past, maybe 2019, 2020 with My Hero Academia and Demon Slayer. So we're bringing it back, but this time, One Piece, where we take Sano and Opal from Apple Black, my series, and put them into other popular series within the world of anime and manga. With my Sharingan eye, we'll also use this as an opportunity to understand the art style of the respective worlds. We'll learn from the creator, learn your techniques, try to mimic that, and maybe pick up a couple other tricks along the way. So it's a fun video / fun tutorial that you guys might be able to enjoy, or use to trick people and say there are new characters coming up in a new season. Gear 5 was a huge moment, the live action was a huge moment.
And One Piece has some of the best moments in pretty much all of anime.
Let's bring that love to the channel.
While doing my sketch, some of the things to watch out for with the One Piece art style is the proportions of the body. Usually the arms and feet are bigger, especially in the early era of the One Piece anime. But generally speaking, the art style has this very simplistic Western cartoony touch to it, but obviously it's Japanese style of animation. The proportions and placements of the facial features are kind of all over the place. The neck is stylistic, thin, having like curved lines, bending inwards. For this illustration, I've decided to draw not just Sano and Opal, but I'll add in Whyt from the series as well. And you can think of Whyt a little bit kind of like a mascot, same way Chopper is to One Piece. And that way we'll be using Chopper as a reference here. And I'm following more of the modern take on the One Piece anime versus the very early era, very early episodes of One Piece. You also notice the ears are so low along the side of the head, and the foreheads are huge. The eyes, noses, and mouth on the humans usually start halfway through the face, especially for the more regular looking humans and younger humans. I'm gonna give Sano more of that Luffy touch to him, so the smile is taking most of that half. I'm gonna make more room for the forehead, and then a lot of the male characters in One Piece usually just have a dot for the eye, or at least a tiny round circle. The colors may vary, but they're usually mostly just black. A tiny nose, big eyes, sometimes with enough room separating them apart, and a huge smile. Sometimes that depends on the character type, but I think since Sano is not that far off from a Luffy, at least from a joyful standpoint, we're gonna go close with Luffy. Versus if I was drawing a character similar to like a Sanji or a Zoro or a Smoker, then I'll make some changes to fit the art style. A lot of artists have different, you can say, features or assets within the pool for their art style of maybe 10 different ways they draw noses, and the nose they pick depends on the character type or eyes or whatever. It maybe depend on the gender of the character and so on. The species even, especially with One Piece, the art styles are really wild, where you can have characters with like crazy body proportions like a Frankie, where it's Johnny Bravo-esque. Oda really gives himself a lot of room to be free and creative with what they're putting down on paper. And as you can see here with Opal, the sketch is a little bit different. And I'm using more of like the Namis and the Black Marias and characters like that to find what I'm looking for here. Now Opal's black. I would have used a black female character, or at least one that was clearly black as referenced here, but I couldn't find any. Let me know in the comments if I'm missing someone. For the inking, again, it also has a simple touch to it. I'll be using the Real G Pen and Clip Studio Paint because the lines aren't like flat and uniform throughout. Some parts might be thicker than others. We're filling in the eyes. The line in the jaw just goes completely across. And remember, the ears are really low when it comes to the positioning across the head. The lines that make up the ears, like the insides of the ears, those are also unique to One Piece, not necessarily realistic, so I'm using a reference for those. And now I'm just inking normal, as you would imagine, trying to mimic the lines that I see from the One Piece anime, but at the same time putting a little bit of Oda directly from what I see, say a little bit in the manga, especially in the folds right there. And we just do this until we're done. When putting in the flat colors, for the blacks, usually for a lot of other anime, they're usually like a dark hue of blue. But here in One Piece, and you can look at all the characters with black here, it's just filled in black straight up. Similar things with the eyes, but again, for the female character, it's a little bit more nuanced than that, and they have bigger pupils and irises with a little bit more shine in the eye. But Sano's design here and everybody's design here, I'm also trying to do an equivalent of what that would look like in a One Piece. And even with a cloak here, adding that on. If you read Apple Black, maybe you kind of understand why I would add that. But then I'm having the patches on the hood, which is a nod to some of the designs that I have seen on very recent One Piece illustrations, even the one I'm using as the main reference for this drawing. Once I'm done with that, I'm just adding in the rest of the flats using Clip Studio Paint. I have a host of videos that go into how to color with an anime style, so you know exactly what I'm doing here already. With the teeth, you can see some of the gums depending on how wide the smile is, but there is no black outline for the gums. You kind of just slap it on there. The line for the teeth completely goes across with like 3 short lines just to show the separation between each tooth. Once I'm done, I fill in the rest of the drawings, and maybe even add some pattern designs to the fabric. For the shading, that's also simple. I have the flats in a separate layer, the inks in a separate layer, the sketch in a separate layer. Since Nami also has orange hair, I'm using the eyedropper tool to get that exact orange. So sometimes I'm getting the exact colors from real references, real One Piece references, even for like the skin. For the black, I just did my own thing because again, I couldn't find at least the right black character that I would use for this. And so I just did that myself. And then I'm shading, making sure I'm picking the right dark hue to mimic the same type of hue that we see in the shades on the reference. The layer for shading is on a separate layer with the linear burn blending mode and the reduced opacity. I usually have another mood layer that does the same thing, but then a very reduced opacity, maybe even 10%. But I've decided to scrap that for this One Piece illustration because I don't think it needs it, especially because it's such daytime. I might as well just leave it as is and only focus on the layer for the shading. Again, you'll know a little bit more what I'm talking about if you've watched my other how to draw and how to color anime videos, especially in this 2D cell shading animation style. Separate layer for the white in the eyes, like the little shine of white in the eyes, and then a separate layer with an add glow blending mode and a reduced opacity and the right hue as well, like a warm one. And you can see that in the color wheel in the bottom left, where I use that to add highlights in the hair and highlights in everywhere I need highlights in the illustration. The gold jewelry thing and Opal's forehead, again, a huge forehead, very One Piece, if you've heard what I've been saying so far. But the gold jewelry is her wand, and
wands in this world could be any items that have undergone certain rituals and help amplify the spells cast by sorcerers. Boxing gloves, guitar, swords, guns, the little stick in Harry Potter. Anything but a body part. Get your mind out the gutter. And then also let us know what you think your wand would be in this world. If you're liking it so far, please don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts, subscribe, and hit that bell so you stay notified each time I upload absolutely anything. Turn on all notifications. Online and in stores worldwide, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Walmart, the list goes on. Is this a clever way to show off Apple Black while also doing pseudo fan art to audiences that might be interested in it? Yes, of course. But hear me out. In a world of sorcery, pre-JJK, I wrote this in 2012, relax. Sano, a teleporter blessed with the arm of a god, proclaimed as this trinity savior of the world, has visions that hint to him being the end of the world. Along with the female lead of the series, Opal Wantmore, who uses her wand to be able to copy the abilities and sorcery of others around her. Starts out as a fun, action, adventure, nice, familiar shonen series with little pockets of my own original sauce. Get your mind out the gutter. And then with each volume to the 4th, which is also the darkest volume, with a season finale that ends with a mind bender.
This is a shonen series with mind-bending twists that you have to see.
I appreciate the effort being put forward to just presenting a really, really good and interesting world. You can tell that this is a passion project and they're just trying to make sure that they cover all their bases in this really cool world.
It's really smooth. It's a good read.
It kept me hooked all over the place, so that's like super cool. This is a good book, man. I would definitely recommend picking it up.
I just finished volume 2 and I'm about to get into volume 3, and listen, what I told you, that ain't gonna get you ready for what's about to happen in this story, fam. My God, bro. This picks up like crazy, and I'm so excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, man, Whyt Manga is the staple, man, for sure. Like,
the artwork is amazing, so it has good pacing. Yeah, if this was a show, I would definitely watch it.
This is the most comprehensive and well thought out story.
If you took My Hero Academia and Harry Potter and they both raw dogged each other and had a baby.
What?
This is kind of what it would be like.
There's solid character development throughout the whole thing.
Everything is top notch.
I like teachers like this. They always seem laid back, but there's always more depth than what they show on the surface. Simon was the one who I saw and I was like, oh no, there's way more to this character than meets the eye. He's a little too weird. He stands out a little too much. My second favorite character, and I believe she's the female MC.
Overall, I give the first volume of Apple Black a score of 8 out of 10 with an asterisk in the corner with huge potential moving forward.
I was already sold on the characters. I was already sold on the world. And then I got to volume 3 and just went crazy. I couldn't believe the twist. Volume 3 is where hit the fan, bro.
This gets so insane, my god. A part of me wants to do another video where I review volume 2 as well.
When I tell you volume 4 is on every other volume, I couldn't believe it.
And starts as a fun shonen series until the Darkest Volume 4 drops and you question absolutely everything. You have to check this out. Volume 4 drops in November.
Tell your favorite online reviewers to do the same. They can also hit me up on Twitter or Instagram or wherever for digital volumes of Apple Black, Clock Striker, or any of our excellent Saturday AM series on our roster. Already working on Volume 5 that begins a new arc, a tournament arc. Plotting and dreaming of one day getting an anime. Good discussions have actually already been had with interested parties and major networks. But to strengthen those talks, we're gonna have to do more, sell more, and we can do that if you guys support. Shout out to those who've already supported and purchased or pre-ordered any of the Apple Black volumes or any of the other Saturday AM volumes, toys, merch. We need to win in every way possible, so I hope you guys support, and thank you to those who already have. This is a nice Atsuko Sano eye shirt. It was one of my favorites. You can get some of the other really cool designs while they're still in stock. When the Saturday Atsuko shirts are in stores like Hot Topic, Box Lunch, Primark. If you want to look like Drippy Neutron, you know what to do. Not just the support, but because the merch is drippy and the books are good.
And back to the illustration with the Gear 5, actually Gear 4. Remember, I'm behind on One Piece. I think the last gear I saw was maybe 3, but I've seen the other gears on Twitter. And the one we need, I think, is actually 4, because the black arms are similar to Sano's regular Erotus black arm, but I want to color them in the same way. So we'll go with a flat blue instead of a red, like with Luffy, and then a flat black to show the shape and the volume of it, and then use the add glow layer to add that shine to it, and then a separate layer for the actual lighting that is on Sano's arm. This way we're on brand with the anime style, which is funny because long before Luffy even had any of those black arms, you know, some people will come on the channel and see Sano with the black arm and they'll think it's a Luffy reference, or at least I was inspired by Luffy, which I wasn't, but it's fine. The proportion of the arm I think is fine as well. I think if this was like the early anime style of One Piece, then the actual fist and fingers and all of that will be much bigger. I'm adding a gradient to show like a light source because I'm about to put the background behind all of this goodness. It should be fun to see me paint this from scratch, obviously using that same One Piece image as reference, pretty much drawing the same background, but a little bit flipped and a few changes here and there. Getting the right gradient for the blue. By the way, all the brushes I'm using are the default brushes within Clip Studio Paint, so we're not actually using anything fancy for this illustration. The gradient is on one layer, then I have a separate layer for the fancy looking clouds, very cartoony. The green grass is on its own layer, but then I'll have layers clipped to that layer, putting in a little bit more rendering and blades of grass and using the brushes that are available within Clip Studio Paint. I think if you use shortcut B enough times, you will see the brush for vegetation, and I'm using some of that. Another layer for the tree behind, and then I'm going to be adding in the cherry blossom leaves with a different vegetation brush, but then also some manual fill-ins with just a regular G pen, trying to get that same vibe with the original illustration. And then on a separate layer above everything, do like the cherry blossom leaves scattering around like Zenbonzakura, and adding a little bit of blur to it. Once you're done with that, add the mountain in the background in the right layer, organize it properly. A lot of the clouds have a little bit of curl to them. The outline of the mountain is actually blue and not black. There really isn't any black outlining, at least in this reference. And I think we're done here.
Full disclosure, One Piece has always been a huge influence when I'm putting together my own series, Apple Black. It was one of the big 3 when I got into shonen manga at all. And I used to watch every episode religiously. Now, we'll say I'm about like 7, 8, 9, 10 years behind. I think the last arc I was in was right after they split and they were doing some Frankie Vegapunk stuff. I have not seen an episode since then, but obviously Twitter spoils everything. So I still kind of know what's maybe going on a little bit, and maybe a few characters here and there, a Kaido, somebody's a Kaido. It's one of those series that was fun to get into. I love a lot of cool character moments that you can rarely find in any form of media at all. It's one of those series that I want my people to get into. I want to be able to recommend, but it's a million episodes. What you gonna do? A million chapters, a million episodes, a million volumes. I think I saw a mock-up of what all the volumes would look like if they were all slapped together. And it's ridiculous. But also very impressive that the creator was able to put all that together. Very unique art style as well. Some of the colored illustrations and spreads are beautiful. Some people rail on the art style here and there, but not here. We don't do that here. And the animation has gotten like crazy good over the years from the clips that I see on Twitter here and there. One Piece is in its era right now. And it's got me thinking a little bit about how long I would imagine Apple Black runs for. I never wanted it to be as long as a One Piece. Maybe like Full Metal length, or even shorter. I used to think maybe 30 volumes, but now I think 23 is a sweet spot. And maybe even shorter, maybe 20, maybe 18. Knowing my story and where I want to go, that's about where it's gonna be. So 23 will be a sweet spot, but if shorter, that's fine. And that also includes a time skip and doesn't include any potential spin-offs, which, stay tuned. I can't really give in-depth thoughts on Gear 5 just yet, because I haven't watched it. I actually know someone who played a role in animating a lot of Gear 5, and they did a fan animation of Apple Black not too long ago. Congrats to them.
This is a meat locker. I'm not a big fan of the cold, you know.
Is that right?
Did I say meat locker? No way. In fact, there's a sauna here. Hang on.
And then as for the live action, I don't want to say much, but I think it's a great way for those getting into One Piece to get into it. It's one of the few anime adaptations that everyone seems to like. It's as weird as the anime, as serious as the anime, as comedic as the anime, while also kind of doing its own thing a little bit.
Now for the filters and effects, I tend to do that in Photoshop. You can save a Clip Studio Paint file as a Photoshop file, so I can open it in Photoshop. And then on the layer with the scattered Sebon Sakura cherry blossoms, I'm adding in a colored inner shadow. Once you double click on the layer, it kind of gives you this effect box where you can play with all these settings, all in service of trying to mimic that same vibe off of the reference. And after that, I select all the layers, duplicate them, lift them to the top, merge the duplicates, and then that merged duplicate, I can duplicate it again or just stick on that same layer, and then use a Gaussian blur to like 30%, change the blending mode to lighten, and then reduce the opacity. The higher the opacity, the more the scene looks like a flashback scene you would see in an anime, but this is to soften the illustration. It's called diffusion sometimes, and it's just to make everything look a little bit more anime. I can even throw in an adjustment layer for selection, go on blacks, and just kind of play with the settings there as well. These are just if you want to have any minor adjustments here and there. Sometimes I also do this with the curve adjustment layer.
When it comes to the narrative, I can see here, Sano and Opal could be pirates of their own. Maybe they're on one of the islands that the Straw Hat crew visits. Are they devil fruit users? What would their abilities be? Definitely Sano would be something along the lines of teleportation and using his super godlike arm to do some crazy stuff. Maybe Opal ate the copy fruit and is able to do everybody else's abilities when she's in close proximity to him, or she sees them or something. I'd love to hear some cool ideas you guys can have in the comments below. Some kind of maybe short one-shot feature-length film, short story type of narrative of what they would kind of do and fit into that One Piece world, into the wide and vast world that is One Piece, or the Grand Line. You know what I'm saying? So what you think about the art? Have I truly mastered Eiichiro Oda's One Piece art style? Leave comments below, as well as any other world you would like to see Sano and Opal visit. What other anime art styles do you want me to master? I'll be taking suggestions in the comments below. Links to everything you could possibly need will be in the description below. Books, merch, social media, all that. Check out more videos in this series, like when we tackled the Demon Slayer art style. It's Whyt Manga, and I'm Audi 9000.